there, I'm Lynette from Christian Roots Canada, your curious Canadian history buff. Today we are talking about our Christian roots as laid down by our forefathers over 100 years ago. Back then, Christian values permeated the culture, giving rise to our legal system, our judicial systems, our educational systems, and even our health care, and many other social institutions. Today I'll be telling you about some of the 25 scripture verses found in the stained glass windows of the Peace Tower of our Parliament buildings. You can also find this information on our website at www.christianrootscanada.org/ the location of the 25 scripture on Parliament Hill. First, I will point you to the east stained glass window, which has 4 of the 25 scripture verses. Next, I will point you to the west stained glass window, which has 6 of the 25 scripture verses. The location of the east stained glass window can be seen from the outside of the Peace Tower, just under the concrete arch on which is engraved Canada's motto from Psalm 72:8, "He shall have dominion also from sea to sea." From the outside of the Peace Tower on the west, these stained glass windows can be seen under the concrete arch on which is engraved the words from Proverbs 29:18, which says, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." Let's go to the inside of the Peace Tower to examine the stained glass windows on the east. This window was designated the Call to Arms by the architect John A. Pearson. Remember, there are 4 verses in the east window. 3 of the scripture verses are found in the first vertical panel, and the 4th is found at the base of the second vertical panel in the window. The first verse can be found in the first vertical panel and above the head of the female figure representing victory. And that verse says, "Thanks be to God who giveth us the victory." And that verse comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 59. The second verse can be found just under the word victory, and that verse says, "Faithful unto death," which comes from Revelation chapter 2, verse 10. The third verse is displayed prominently at the base of the first panel and says, "Quit ye like men, be strong." And that verse comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 13. The 4th verse is also prominently displayed at the base of the second vertical panel, and that verse says, "Thou hast girded me with strength unto the battle," and that comes from Psalm 18, verse 39. The west stained glass window was designated the Dawn of Peace by the architect John A. Pearson. 6 scripture verses can be found in the second and third vertical panels of the window. The first scripture verse can be found at the very top of the second vertical panel, where we see the words "Prosper thou" and the word "build." These words come from 1 Chronicles chapter 22, verse 11, which says, "And prosper thou, and build the house of the Lord thy God, as he hath said of thee." The second verse is seen immediately under the first, around the shoulders of someone representing prosperity. There we read the words, "Shalt make thy way prosperous." These words come from Joshua chapter 1 verse 8, which reads, "For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success." The third verse can be seen immediately under the image called prosperity. We can read the words, "The fields are white to harvest." And those words come from John chapter 4, verse 35. The fourth verse is from Psalm 46. "He maketh wars to cease." And that verse is prominently displayed at the very bottom of that vertical panel, under the feet of a group of people representing agriculture. The fifth scripture verse can be found in the third vertical panel around the shoulders of a figure who represents progress. It says, "Wise in heart and mighty in strength," and is taken from Job chapter 9. The sixth scripture verse is also prominently displayed at the bottom of the third vertical panel, and it says, "Judgment shall return unto righteousness." And that verse comes from Psalm 94 verse 15. These 10 scripture verses can be found collectively in the east and west stained glass windows. You can also find this information on our website at www.christianrootscanada.org/ the location of the 25 scriptures on Parliament Hill. Next time, we will look at the south stained glass window and the scriptures on the back wall of the Peace Tower. So until next time, this is Lynette, your curious Canadian history buff from Christian Roots Canada.
To learn more about the Christian roots of Canada's history, visit our website at christianrootscanada.org.